Good evening, and welcome back to the Not So Perfect Bigfoot Show. Tonight, I have Jeff Yarrington with me. Jeff is a really good friend of mine, and I'm very honored to have him on. And I'll say this before I bring him on. When I think about the backbone of America and the people that really make the country go around, Jeff always comes to mind. Jeff is a farmer in Maryland. He gets up at the break of dawn, works all day on the farm, works till the sun goes down. He comes in, he takes care of his family, and he takes time out for his friends. Jeff is a dedicated father. He loves his friends and he loves his country. And I'm very proud that he took the time out of his busy schedule to be on the show tonight. How you doing, Jeff?
Oh, I'm just listening to the rain.
Well, yeah, the storms should be hitting us in a couple of hours. This will be the first tropical storm and hurricane that I have not worked in 30 years. I have always been working in a sense of public safety or animal protection, and is kind of weird to be at home. Johnny's on the road, and I know we got a lot of rain coming in, and it's supposed to be flooding pretty bad, and probably the worst we've ever seen. So I am hunkered down with Swamp Kitty and Cowboy our dog, and waiting for it to come in.
Swamp Kitty.
Yeah, Swamp Kitty. She's out probably stalking the dog. She gets in her moods, and Cowboy's like, "Oh my God, that cat's psycho," but I love her. She's family. So one of the things I found really interesting about you, Jeff, is you grew up on your family farm, and for a lot of people that's never been around a farm. I know as a kid, I used to put in tobacco, and we had, farmers all around us. And honestly, it was paradise. We'd go running through the corn rows and scare the bejesus out of each other at night. And, I always had tobacco growing and cotton. And it was just a great way to grow up. But that was what was around us. We never actually grew up on a farm.
Planting tobacco is a rough job.
Handing it and picking it.
Oh yeah.
Then hanging it in that, back in the day, you hung it in, I don't know how they do it now, but you hung it in the barns and you would tie it off.
Some people still do it up here in Pennsylvania, up near us.
That is like the hottest time of the year where you put in tobacco.
I tell you, I never liked planting it. I used to help one of my neighbors that used to plant it. And you'd get a contact high from that stuff just from putting the damn plants in the ground.
I will tell you this, the prettiest shade of green that I've ever seen in my life is tobacco, the green color of tobacco when it's growing. It's just a healthy plant. It's a beautiful shade of green. Call me sentimental or whatever. I don't care. But growing up on a farm, you learn values, you learn hard work, and it's really, when it's a family farm, I mean, your farm has been in your family over 100 years?
Yes.
So what was a day in the life like growing up on that farm, and the values and the lessons you learned from the hard work and the generational family running the farm?
Well, I can tell you one thing: there's never really a slow day.
That's the truth.
So some days are busier than others, but there's always something going on. There's never a lack of things to do, animals to take care of. Right now, we got a lot of newborns. It's definitely been I don't know what if I could have lived any other way.
You said your farm qualified, was it the Century Farm or?
It's 100 now. Well, I guess it's considered legacy, but we're 100 years old now, so I guess Century.
Now, what exactly does that mean? Do you get recognition, or is there some kind of perk?
Oh, we got to go to a banquet and got placards, and you know,
The stuff you didn't want to do, right?
stuff that really wasn't necessary, but we got it. But we
So,
have a lot of our property in ag preservation, which means we sold our development rights, so it can't be developed. If somebody bought it off, if we had to sell it for whatever reason, and someone did buy it, if they wanted to try to even do that, they'd have to jump through a lot of hoops and probably spend a lot of money.
well, I think that's great. Honestly, I sometimes we need to build up and not out.
Technically, they can't touch it for houses, but you know, I'm sure some people try.
Well, part of growing up on the farm, you went hunting.
Yep.
What'd you hunt for?
Everything: squirrels, rabbits, doves, deer, all the varmints, foxes, raccoons, pretty much everything around here I've hunted. I mean, we're actually getting black bears back on the back here in the area now, which is something that's just really started in the last 10 years. We've actually got mountain lions in the area occasionally, not all the time, but they're around.
If DNR tells you they're not out there, they are there.
Don't even get me. They told us we didn't have coyotes. When people were shooting coyotes, they said they weren't here.
So I always said, don't ask DNR if you want the truth, and don't ask Google.
Yeah. we had a deer with CWD one time, and I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And we had them come look at it. You know what they told me? Oh, it just got a brain abscess. They shot it and told me I could take it and dispose of it.
Wow.
It was during muzzleloader season. I should have just put it down, and I had a tag.
Okay, I'm gonna shut up on that one.
Yeah.
So eventually so before you had your first experience, did you believe in Bigfoot?
I always believed in it as a kid.
Where'd that come from?
I just always had an interest in that kind of stuff when I was little. And I read a lot of books as a kid about Bigfoot in the Pacific Northwest. I can't remember the name of the books because it was so long ago. But I mean, I read a lot of Bigfoot books when I was little.
Were you like most people that you thought that there was one Bigfoot, and it lived out west?
I didn't think there was a Bigfoot. I thought there was more than one, but I thought they were all out west.
So when did that change for you? Do you want to go into that? You got a reality check one day.
Yeah. So all the years that I've spent on this property, I mean, I've lived here my whole life doing all the farm work. And there's things that working around the fields and stuff over the years that seem kind of odd. And I never put a lot of it together. I mean, it was never really stuff like animals going missing or stuff like that. I mean, we raised a lot of calves, and once in a while a calf will die, or there'll be a calving complication and it's stillborn, and we got to take them out and bury them. And never really had anything like that. We there was before my main encounter, there was a time we were walking back from the neighbors, and right here on the road, right past my house, and there was like 4 or 5 of us because my buddy's truck broke down next door. And we got out on the cornfield and started walking, got to the road. And as soon as we got up the road, there was a something got on the road behind us. And I never really thought about it at the time till later on. But that something was chasing us on 2 legs. And you could hear the feet slapping the pavement.
Did you guys run?
Oh, yeah. I probably outdistanced everybody. And I'm one of the shortest ones.
So it was bipedal chasing you, and the weight
Yeah.
was coming down strong enough to pound the pavement. That's heavy weight.
It's funny because when I first went public about this on Woodwalkers back in January, I never even thought about that incident. There's a lot of stuff that's come up that I've thought about, and it's all mainly been here at the farm. The majority of it. Just, I mean, a lot of little stuff, but, you know, like owls that didn't sound right and blue herons that, you know, were surrounding me, which didn't make any sense. And stuff like that. And then things growling at you that you can't see in the brush, and things that I should have been able to see.
It's an uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah. Well, the worst one was the big one. And we've talked about that one.
Let's go into that one.
So that night, it was 08. It was October, right before muzzleloader started. And we were getting ready to go out and work on a last minute thing. We had planned on doing it earlier that week and just got behind on us. And we were planning on hunting that stand that weekend. So my buddy Josh comes over and he's like, well, let's go get this taken care of. And we go out there with the world's worst flashlight and the handsaw.
One of those old school flashlights.
The old, you know, the ones I'm talking about, the old plastic yellow ever-ready flashlights that you can't see 20 feet with, you know. I've heard so many people having experiences carrying those stupid things.
They probably look at them and think it's a joke.
I hope somebody at some point figure out how to put a better bulb in those, because I gave up on them. But we get over there, and it's small hardwoods. It's a little corner section of the property that goes into the neighbors. It's right against a golf course. We get in there after I turned the tractor around. It was just I didn't see the point in leaving the tractor facing up the hill. Good thing I did that. It was still running. We got out, walked in there, and got to the stand, and the limb had been hanging across there. Now, I'm pretty sure that it wasn't something that put the limb there, because it looked like the limb broke off way up in the tree and just happened to fall right down on top of the stand. The railing was bent up, so we just started working on it. And as he's cutting, I'm holding the light, and the loudest vocalization I've ever heard in my life cut loose behind me.
About how far was it?
100 yards. Maybe.
It was not a nice thing, was it?
No, it was not.
Sorry.
I am no longer that unprepared. Trust me.
So your first vocal was about 100 yards away.
Yeah.
What did you have on you?
A pocket knife. A really small pocket knife. Not like one of these.
I don't think that would help either. So.
Well, I got a cold steel bore spear behind me that would have been sufficient, but
maybe.
I tell you, it definitely changed the narrative with me carrying guns over here in the woods after dark. You won't catch me back there with that one anymore.
So you and your friend were out there.
Yeah.
You got your first vocal.
And we thought it was somebody messing around. And that was that was an eye-opening experience there. Being a teenager and having something that magnitude. And being a typical teen, you just think, oh, well, it's some guy over here messing with us. Well, he's trespassed and we're going to go run him off. And I never had a problem doing that, and I still don't. I'm just a little more prepared when I go to do it. And I'm not carrying pocket knives and dim ever-ready flashlights either. I start cussing at him, it, I don't know, it could have been a female. And within about 30 seconds of that, it's closer. I never heard it move. I didn't hear anything. And now this thing's about 40 yards from us. And it's screaming again. And I'm like, well, there was a few choice words said at that point. And that was when Josh finally stopped sawing on his tree branch.
Wow.
And he's telling me as I'm standing there trying to see what it is, he's like, I don't know what it is, but I think we need to be backing out of here. And we're starting to back out. And it does it again. I mean, this thing sounded like you were in front of a train. It felt like you were in front of like a train horn or something. Just the volume of this thing. I've handled a lot of livestock in my 35 years. But you know, growing up around animals as a kid, you know how big stuff is. Especially being around, cows and horses, when you hear them snort and you feel them run past you, you feel that energy.
Yes,
and
you do.
This thing was putting up all sorts of vibrations just by yelling at you.
Okay. Are you going to make me drag the part about the Duke boys coming out in you?
No,
you cannot tell this story without telling.
We're going there here in a second.
Okay, because you get silent, I have to pull something out of you because
so when we
back for entertainment, sir, no silent treatment.
You won't get silent treatment from me.
That's for sure.
So we back up, and as we're backing up, it starts screaming at us again. And at that point, I was like, F this. And I turned around and I went past him. He went the other way. We're just like crisscrossed at this point.
Tools up in the air.
Stuff everywhere. The tool, I don't know where the saw and the flashlight went. Might still be there. We still hunt up there, but I don't know if we ever grabbed that stuff when we ran out of there. We're running and tripping over things, and branches are flying, and I get out to the tractor, and he ended up down the hill from me, but I come out right behind it. I damn near catapulted myself up into the cab once I got the door open and cranked that thing up and was taken out across the field and realized I was leaving him behind me. but he had figured out that I wasn't slowing down. So he jumped on and started yelling, "You trying to kill us?" And I took off across that thing. And I didn't know this was possible, but I found out that night that John Deere tractors will jump a hill.
Go airborne, huh?
Oh, yeah. 4-wheel drive tractor with a loader to the floor. I never thought I'd see the day that I did that, but
Never thought you'd see the day you had a Bigfoot yelling at you from the Woodline either. All things are possible, sir, in the Bigfoot world.
Then we didn't slow our speed either until we got up on the road and got into Granddad's driveway, power sliding the tractor in the front yard. Sure, my grandmother was cussing in the house, but I wasn't paying attention to her. And we ran inside and shut the door, and everyone just kind of looked at us, and we were saying, well, something was chasing us out of the woods, and my grandfather just said, well, that happens sometimes. I was thinking, what in the hell did he mean by that?
He knew.
I'm pretty sure he did. He would never come out and say he knew what was there, but there were some things that I think back about years ago. Like, he was always real hesitant. He's always worried about us being out there after dark. He never really said why. He always come up with an excuse, but you never really thought that was what it was.
Makes sense now.
Yeah. And I wish I could have asked him before he passed back in January. But by then the dementia had I tried to get it out of him before. And I mean, he lived there his whole life. So I know that
he was how old when he passed in January?
93.
Wow. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
They don't make them like that anymore, do they?
No. And the dementia, that's the worst part about dementia. It completely changed him. And he was not the person that I knew. I mean, it is. There's not an amount of money I wouldn't have given to have somebody figure out how to erase that disease, because it is nasty what it does to people.
I completely agree with you. 93 years old, worked all of his life.
Dies from that.
93 years old is a good life, Jeff.
Yes.
He did something right, buddy. He did something wrong.
There was a lot of bloopers in the last few years with him and some of his forgetfulness. Oh, Lord. But I laugh at it now, but at the time it wasn't so funny. But yeah, him and his grandfather were the ones that started this place. And I know that there had to have been something that they weren't telling anybody. Even though, and I've told you this, he did find tracks, I think it was in the 70s, on the neighbor's property that we used to farm. And he said they were probably, I'd say, if I remember correctly, in the range of 16 to 18 inches. And they were at least spaced about 5 foot apart.
I'm sorry, I had to cough.
And that was kind of an active time in this area of Maryland for sightings. There was a lot of stories around then. Someone supposedly hit one in the park with a car, but later on they claimed that the hair came back as a Black Angus cow.
Of course they did.
Of course, because cows walk on 2 legs across the state road in the park.
Well, I heard they can speed walk like that.
If I happen to catch one of mine doing it, I'll let you know.
Get it on video. But I told you I have a friend in North Carolina that is the wildlife officer, and he's my buddy. We used to have lunch by the river because he'd be down there patrolling, and I'd be patrolling my area, and that's where I would have my lunch, and we'd always sit by the riverbank, and he would not admit we had them. He told me I was crazy, and I said, no, sir. I said, crazy, yes, but I know what is out there. And us being that close.
Over here that'll tell you. He won't go out and flat out say it, but he'll talk. He talked to me about stuff he's found.
Like what?
Tracks in one of the state parks.
I spoke with someone the other day, and I'm not a storyteller. Storyteller, that is an art that I don't.
Yeah, I'm not one of those either.
I don't possess. And I reached out to one of my friends that does a podcast, and I'm like, well, how can you tell these great stories? People are sending me their stories, and I don't want to slaughter their stories. Like, I will slaughter an introduction and a last name. I don't want to slaughter anyone's stories. And he was actually out in the woods. His encounter was Class A, 20 yards away. Crazy one. And he was out in the woods, and he found a bone pile. And this is a man, 62 years old. He has lived off the land, been hunting since he was 8. And he'll tell you really fast. He's got a little bit of temper, got military experience, used to box in the military. He's old school. He's like that guy in Secondhand Lines. You ever watched the movie when they go into the store and the old guy beats the young guy up?
That's one of my favorite scenes in movies.
that would definitely be this gentleman. He would probably show a young guy some respect and how to respect.
You better pick that up because you're going to need it.
Exactly, and I love that. I got to tell you, Secondhand Lines and Last of the Dog Men. I love The Last of the Dog. If you have never watched it, Jeff, I've been watching it. I don't
know if I've watched that one.
Tom Berenger.
Oh, I think
Tom Berenger is a man's man.
I love Tom Berenger. I'm trying to think. I might have watched that a long time ago.
So I've probably watched this movie 30 times since I was a teenager. It has always, bottom line, been my favorite movie. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying. This guy was out in the woods, and this is before he had his encounter.
Yeah.
And he finds a bone pile in a hollow. And he said there were cow bones or calf bones, coyote bones, hog bones, the feral pigs, and like possum bones. He said some were old, some were new, and they were stacked. And his wife looked at him. She goes, I really don't feel comfortable here. And, him respecting his wife wishes they left the area. He said it was the worst feeling. And it was not a year later where he had an encounter 20 yards, not less than a mile away.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of odd things you find out there, and like you wouldn't think anything of it, you know, if you weren't into the Bigfoot stuff. You would be like, well, that's weird. You know, maybe a wild dog just collects bones. I don't know, but there's a lot of weird stuff out there. And you telling me that you guys had a history of it, and you having your experience on the farm and your grandfather finding those tracks, you know, when you put it all together, is small pieces make a puzzle. It completes.
Yeah. Exactly. And there's other things, and one of one I was talking to, I can't remember if it was, I was talking to Barry Browning earlier today, and I talked to Mark Green this morning, and I can't remember which one of them I was talking to about, but I've told you about how I've encountered, uh, you know, spirits and stuff before, seeing ghosts. And
You have told me, but not the listening audience, sir.
so I pretty sure this was way before all of the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe close year wise to the time we got chased out by something down the road. But it was snowing. I mean, you know, ice and everything else. I was walking outside. You know how the trees, they get a nice load on them, and next thing you know, all the limbs are bowing down. Well, I'd gone out. It was early in the morning. I'd gone out front to check on some of the calves, and I was walking back around the house, heading towards the barn. And I've never really, till recently, even thought about this until I've heard a few stories of people thinking that they saw a ghost and it was actually one of these. I saw a figure standing down past the barn out towards our corn silage trenches, and it was right at the end of the lockups where we lock up the heifers to breed them on the lot. And now that I've been thinking about that, it was too tall.
Things that
Way
don't
too
occur
tall.
to you at the time.
Uh-huh. And when I did my first interview on Woodwalkers, it never crossed my mind. It was always the night I got screamed at was always the one that stuck in my head. But that was after the screaming was after a few years after this.
So I have to agree with you on that, because when people ask me sometime, have I ever had supernatural experience? I know one I've had, but you know, I was at work today, and I was working my cases, and for whatever reason, a experience come back to me, and I'm like, how did I forget that? And I'm sitting here now and I can't think of it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that is probably the best story to tell somebody. And now I'm sitting here now and it's gone. But you can talk to people a lot, and the more in depth people go, and the more they open up and the more comfortable they are with opening up to people, things will come back to you and they start to make sense. And I see that a lot.
Once you start thinking about it, it's amazing what pops into your head.
So do you think this thing was after grain or after the calves?
We've never had a problem with anything killing a cow or taking a. Once in a while, we'd get like a coyote or something that would try to snatch something, but we've never had an animal, as far as I'm aware of, because I'm usually the one I'm the one that handles all the calves. I don't think we've ever had one taken. Now, I've had instances where calves were stillborn, and something went out there and fed on them. But normally that was
Coyotes or
foxes or buzzards or now in the last few years coyotes in the last 10 years, but never where the calf was just up and gone. Nothing like that.
was that the only really hard encounter you had on your property? The John Deere tractor episode?
Well, there was another time I was hunting a couple years ago, and I was by myself testing out my buddy's rifle, and I don't know why everybody always volunteers me to test their stuff out for them. I guess they think I'm gonna go put it to good use.
Why not?
Hey, I'm not complaining. I get to play with guns for free. So
That's what you do.
Why would anybody complain about that? I'd be concerned if you complained about it.
We can't be friends, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if they asked me and I said no, they'd think there's something wrong with me.
You were sick or been abducted,
Anyway,
brainwashed, but go ahead.
Yeah. I'm not brainwashed.
I was going to
Might be
say
a little
you have
simple
to have
sometimes, but I'm not brainwashed.
I was going to say you have to have a brain, but I forgot we were recording and not talking. But go ahead. Sorry.
But anyway, we I think it was just me that night. I don't think anybody else was there. But there's this one particular place out back that we really like to go during gun season because that's where a lot of them congregate. And there's always a ton of deer in there. And that night I was in there, and it's kind of set up on a hill. So there's like it's like a little ridge back that goes around, and then there's like a field above me, and there's a field over to my right. And I don't know why, but I kept feeling like there was something looking at me. And I've hunted since I was probably, I think I started squirrel hunting when I was like 10 or 11. They'd hand me a single shot 20 gauge, and I'd just go on about my day, or I'd have a 22 or whatever. But I've been in situations with charging animals and stuff before. Bears, neighborhood dogs chasing me, cows trying to run me over. But this was different. And I did not get a good feeling about it. And I flipped the safety off and sat the rifle up on the railing, waiting for something. And that's not something that I generally do.
To have a gun etiquette, to not have something in sight, to drop the safety and put it in the red, that's something serious for someone with gun. That's what you do when you're about to take something down.
Uh-huh.
So that tells me, as a 2A person, whether you are or not, that's whatever,
Yeah.
but I am. And that tells me that, you've had proper training, you understand what they're, a firearm's capable of doing. That tells me you had fear. You had that very uneasy, well, maybe not fear, but you had that feeling of probably fight or flight, and you stood your ground to see. That's a serious to me. Someone in the comments will say, "Oh, do it," but to me, making it red, dropping the safety down, that tells me that you were pretty focused on something. To put it mildly.
Exactly.
I get it.
And it was something was looking at me, and I got to the point where I was like, you know what? If you want to do it this way, I'm going to make it really hard on you. I don't suggest you do that. And it just stopped, whatever it was. I mean, I was pretty much talking when I was saying, don't do it.
Was there a change in the atmosphere? Like, was there silence around? Were birds spooked out the trees, or
it feel like everything completely that feeling went away.
Wow. Was that the first time you were in that area?
Hell no. You mean deer I've probably hunted out of that place?
Damn.
And I haven't had that feeling since then, since I've hunted back in there.
Jeff. Well, you were also, let's get into what happened to you in West Virginia.
Yeah. There's another safety comes off.
Safety comes off. Some serious stuff's about to go down. I get it. Well, any day, sir.
West Virginia was one of those. That was one of those times that I told them, and we were in agreement. Well, at least two of us. Josh was there.
Poor Josh seems to get the bad end of everything with you.
He was there, and we were in the Monongahela on the border of Randolph and Tucker on a place called Green Mountain. And I've talked to some other people about that area, and they said nothing seems friendly in there.
Not very neighborly.
Well, I was talking in a chat room one night about that area, and some guy was like, "Yeah, we've been in there. We've had stuff happen in there." And that night we were in there, and there was we were there for 4 days, I think. It rained for the first day, and we went out turkey hunting that week, and I can't remember what day it was, if it was the second day we hunted it or what, but I hunted an area close to the camp that was up on a little ridge, and I'm not a turkey hunter. I'll go out and go with everybody else because that's what they want to go do, but I'd rather go out during deer season. That's my time. And so I was up there, and I had a Beretta A300 semi-automatic 12 gauge with what was that? 3-inch Remington Nitro Magnum turkey loads and number 4 shot, and a 38 special.
A little backup there.
It's about was that a 3.5, 4-inch 38? I think it was an old J frame or an L frame. I can't remember. That's my favorite one. I like old school. I'm not big on stuff that can jam.
I like a Ruger, and because a Ruger, you can throw it in the mud, it's still going to fire.
Yeah. Those old Smith & Wesson 6-shooters, it's hard to stop them things. They're going to go off when you need them to.
I had a little snub nose that I wish I'd kept it now, but I won't go into benefits of I'm not even going to say the benefits of a revolver. But anyway, so you're out there shooting turkey.
So the turkeys were up on the ridge, and I'm going up into this area, and there's a lot of laurel and rocks and stuff, and I got real close to this one boulder, and it was kind of one of those spots where you were in a blind spot, and I don't like blind spots. I don't like heading into a spot that looks like it might possibly be an ambush.
I get it.
Which walking in that whole place the entire time, I felt like I was in an ambush situation. Brush growing up on either side of you, even though you're walking by the creek, and it's so thick that, I mean, in certain places, something could reach out and grab you if it wanted to. It was not a friendly area. And I was getting close to this boulder, and I just kept getting more freaked out and just weird the closer I got to that spot. And the ground was getting pretty steep right there, and I knew I had to climb up to get to that little plateau there. Well, the farther I get into it, I'm like, no, something's wrong. And finally, I was so creeped out just looking at where I had to go that something was wrong. I don't know how else to explain it, but something was telling me, do not go in there. And that was when I flipped the safety off of the Beretta, and I reached down and unstrapped my Smith & Wesson and started backing down the hill. I don't like that feeling.
Mm-mm.
I do not like that at all.
Especially when you're in a environment and surroundings that, like me going out the swamp. I love the swamp.
Yeah.
People like the mountains. I love the swamp. I just, when you're in that environment and you're comfortable, and that is your place, and you get a feeling like that, you best pay attention to it.
I mean, I've camped in the woods like that before, and I've camped out in Western Maryland and experienced stuff and never felt as freaked out as I did on that mountain.
Were you the only one that felt that?
Well,
Josh.
Or Josh again. The next day, I think we were fishing right in that same vicinity near the camp, and Sam and I left him down there, and he said he was going to try because he was bound and determined to pull a trout out of this stream, and we weren't catching anything. This was supposed to be like a blue ribbon trout stream. Well, the blue ribbon section must have been about 10 miles away from us on the other end somewhere, because we were nowhere near the blue ribbon section.
Well, I said a bad day fishing is never, I don't even know what I was going to say. Go ahead.
Well, that was just a bad day.
I was going to say any day fishing is a bad day, but I don't know what I was going to say. But
carry on, sir. Fishing is usually a good day, except for that time.
So anyway, poor Josh is about to get it, ain't he? I just got that feeling.
Yeah, he's down there by himself, and Sam and I are back at the camp gathering firewood and stuff. And well, a few minutes later, he comes rolling in there, and when I mean rolling in there, he was moving. He had a Ruger P95 in one hand and and his fishing pole in the other. And I was like looking at him. He's looking down the trail, looking at me, looking over at Sam, looking back down the trail. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? He's like, well, after you guys left, you've been gone for a bit. I'm still down there fishing. And once in a while, I'd hear a pebble or something come zinging out of the trees, hit the water. And it just kept happening. And then the rocks started getting bigger.
Oh, gosh.
And then I decided it was time to come back. He's like, you sure you weren't down there? No. we were right here. And he goes,
Wow.
well, bears don't have hands.
But Sasquatch does, sir.
I said, I know. And he just kind of looked at me, and I don't know if he really ever mentioned it to Sam. We try not to tell Sam things. He's the guy who tried to run out of there in the middle of the night with 4 flashlights strapped to him and break his ankle going to the truck.
Oh no, keep Sam out of the picture.
Josh and I'd be sitting at the fire with the largest bonfire ever seen in a state park.
Meanwhile, Sam's like a UFO.
With everything loaded sitting next to it. But
always one in the bunch, sir.
I know. I'd probably burn the national forest down before I'd let one eat me.
So, with all of your years hunting, have you ever had a deer disappear that you have shot, or any type of game?
There's been a few. Now, I've talked to several people about this. I've never had one where I went and found it and came back and it was gone. I've had several that I've tracked that there was no way the blood could have just disappeared the way it did. I mean, some of these deer were like, you were following a paint trail and then nothing. Now, I've had ones where I've hit them and came back and found them and thought they were dead, and they'd jump up and try to run off, and I'd have to put them down. But
so if you have a deer that's bleeding out and you're tracking it, and all of a sudden the blood is gone, something either grabbed it and is moving at an incredible speed where you don't see the next where the blood's dropping. There's so much space there, or something consumed it. I'm thinking something put it over his shoulder and is running so fast that the trail just.
Or it could have just picked it up and walked off with it. If we were a ways behind trailing it,
But if it's bleeding like a lack of better words, stuck pig, and it just walks off with it, wouldn't there still be a blood trail?
My theory is if these things have this much hair, if they're picking it up and they're carrying it, that blood's probably just soaking into their hair or something.
That's a good point. You are so much smarter than you look. Sorry, that's a joke. If people knew us behind the scenes, if people knew us when we're just having a general conversation, they would say I've been really easy on you tonight.
Yeah.
What do you think they are?
When I first started looking into this, before I came out, I thought it was just some sort of I thought it was just an animal.
What's changed?
Just a lot of stories that I hear now, like people will be watching an area thinking it's going to cross, and the next thing you know, it's on the other side and they never saw it. How does something cross? How does a regular flesh and blood animal cross an opening and you never saw it come across?
Well, I don't know, sir. I mean, I understand that, with my gender, I'm supposed to know everything, but that I do not know. But you hear a lot of stories, and you have your own podcasts. We'll get to that in a minute. But you hear a lot of stories. Of the stories that you have collected and your experiences, and when you talk to someone, you can kind of get a feel for who they are after a while, and the story. And sometimes some of the most amazing stories, you can't question them because you know the integrity of the person. But collecting all of that, with that in mind, all the stories you've heard, what has been the one story that sticks out in your mind?
Well, I gotta give Greg House from Woodwalkers props on that one, because that was the story that made me come out about it.
Good deal. Okay.
It's called The Motorcycle. He was on the ground deer hunting on his place, and somebody was revving up a motorcycle on the highway behind him, and he'd been dealing with these things at the property for years, and finally there was one in the woods behind him. It got tired of the motorcycle revving up on the road, and this thing just starts destroying the woods behind him, screaming, throwing stuff, shaking the trees. And he's about the distance I was from mine when it was yelling at me. And he's hiding behind this tree with a rifle, waiting for this thing to pop out and try to rip his arms off. And just the volume and the way he described it.
We talk about it, and we take cheap shots at each other, and we come across it as lighthearted. But the thing is that they can be pretty aggressive, and you get stories of people that have them on their property and they can cohabitate and they tolerate each other. But I will say this again, and I say it every chance I get. I think most of them do not want to be your friends. I think that a lot of us cannot read their boundaries. We don't know half of what we think we know about them.
Yeah.
Most of what we know, we speculate.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can gather data and you can look at people's stories all over the world and you can get common denominators. But I think in the end, and then this is going to make some people mad, I think they will take your head off if you give them half a chance.
Yes.
And those feelings you get in your gut, they don't come from something wanting to be your buddy or eat the apples in your bag. And I do know there are people that have had positive encounters and everything. And there's stories over and over where they could have taken someone out.
Yeah.
But they chose not to. I spoke to, a young lady today that, when she was a little girl, one of them tried to snatch her. And, she's my age now, and I'm an old woman. I'm in my 50s. And she still has a hard time talking about it. And so it's okay to be lighthearted and, to
Yeah.
joke around and just try to have a lighthearted interview or talk about them. But I would say they're not what a lot of people make them out to be. Maybe for their experience, I do think these things will tear you up, will tear you apart.
And he's learned how to live around them, so they're not. Once he figured out how to do that, they're not as they're not. They don't really get. They don't mess with him too much now. I mean,
Like
they'll come
those
up and say
boundaries
hi.
set. Well, I'm not going to lie. I've never heard a story. I don't know a story. I mean,
Yeah.
you talk to people and they always think you have heard your story. Well, I don't. There's a lot of stories I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know, by speaking with like the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade out of Georgia, they have almost unspoken boundaries. They don't cross each other. And those
But they're not
boundaries.
aggressive around here, except for that one time I got too close to them at night.
I hear Arkansas gets a lot of aggressive ones.
Yeah.
Out toward
Yarrington just
Arkansas.
doesn't get that unless you get up like around West Virginia. That seems to be the place I don't like to go. I mean,
I had a friend in West Virginia that did not think he was going to make it out of the woods
I
alive.
remember you telling me that. Yeah.
And that to hear him recount it years later, just the depth of his voice and if you have a positive encounter, that's great. If you have a positive story, that's great. But I don't trust them. I'll go out in the woods and look for an experience with them, but that's because my mind needs an adrenaline rush. Because of my background, I need to feel something to still feel alive. And that's something it's not going to change. So I go out to get that feeling, to feel alive, to feel. I don't even know if that makes sense.
I really think the ones around here just like to be goofy. I think that's what I don't think there's any aggression with these things. I mean, the one time, poor Josh once again.
Poor Josh.
Changing his clothes down there by himself after hunting one night and putting all of his stuff in the back of the truck, and he hears something mumbling in the woods next to him, and he's like, I just quit changing and got in the truck and drove up the trail.
No, when you piece all those events together,
yeah,
it tells a story.
And I mean, we've heard screams down there at early in the morning, getting ready to go out hunting, and Sam decided he was just going to go down there to where his stand was near where the scream was coming from, and I was like, "Are you sure?" And he was always real big about getting in early before everybody else was, and that was the first thing he heard when he got out of the truck that morning. I was like, what did you think that was? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, don't expect me to come bail you out of there.
So when is the last time that you had something happen on the farm that you can question now?
Well, I don't know if it's because they're so used to me, but I'm starting to wonder if they don't navigate down the road here at night. Where I'm at, it's pretty wide open. There's really no trees on this property, but about 30 yards behind me here, there at my driveway, there's about a 50 acre wide swath of, not 50 acres, I'm sorry, 50 yards. A little swath of woods that goes down the road. And a lot of times my dogs will sit here and look out at that section. And the only time I can tell that it's not something odd is they'll be out there barking. If they're focused on that and they're not barking, then I'm like, well, I wonder what's over there.
Makes you wonder, don't it? But I think you kind of know. I think you kind of know.
And one night, I was actually I'm getting ready to go to bed, and I was upstairs, and I was messaging Greg House and David Blaylock and our friend River from Australia, because we're all in a group chat, and I'm laying there and I hear something. You know how you've ever heard like a bird bump into a window, like it was tapping on the window? Well, this was like 11 o'clock at night, and something bumped the bay window out here in my dining room, but it did it like 2 or 3 times. And I was laying there, and I had an old Winchester 3030 propped up in the corner, and I'm looking over at it going, am I going to need that? And I'm messaging them, and Greg's like, don't get concerned unless you hear things breaking downstairs.
That's
I didn't get up. I didn't go down and look. I didn't, but that's the only time that I can think of that something actually happened at my house. Everything happens on the back of the property. And there's been times we've been out there on tractors in the evening, and there's certain places when you're working the fields that you're like, oh, we probably work on this section tomorrow during the daytime. And you take the tractor and go somewhere else. But even the guys that haul manure for us, they run a lot at night. And the one guy's like, man, that back area just feels weird at night. You want to hear something strange? He saw what he described as a rake over on the other side of the river next to one of the power plants coming out of the reservoir.
I don't think I ever want to see them.
No.
No. No. I mean, did it go after them or?
No, he said it just crossed, and there's a real steep drop off on this side, and there's the reservoir's right here. So on your left hand is the reservoir and a chain link fence. Then you cross the road, and there's a guardrail with about a couple 100-foot drop right there. And he said it just came across and kind of like it shielded itself, like it was blinded. And then it just crawled over the guardrail.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's a big no, thank you, sir.
That is too damn close to here for me.
I saw a dog man, and I hate the term dog man. I saw a canine type cryptid. And when you see those things, if you would have asked me a day before, is there a canine cryptid out there? I'd be like, you are full of it, And then you get a reality check, and you question everything that, I mean, you're seeing it with your eyes. You know it's there. You saw it. You weren't, I was at work. I weren't drunk. And so, I mean, you literally will talk yourself out of an understanding your experience.
Well, and when you grow up working around livestock and stuff, and then you see something or you experience something, not necessarily seeing it, there's a lot of things that make,
an experience, a feeling, a vocal, finding bone piles, the missing deers. Those are really, they're not validated enough.
What about a deer carcass in a deer stand?
Was it a suicidal deer or what?
Well, if it was, there were 2 of them on the same field.
Wow. So do tell, sir.
Skinned and partial. Well, I doubt they use knives, but that they were mostly eaten, and it looked like if someone had taken a coat and laid it over the back of a chair, it just looked like whatever it was walked by and just laid this thing over the ladder on the deer stand, on 2 different deer stands.
Wow. So now, was it you that was telling me about the deer that had the jaw broke off?
Uh-huh.
So go into that.
I've seen them killed by coyotes. I've seen them completely ripped apart by coyotes. This thing was dead. I found it where it was laying. All the meat was gone off of it. Like whatever it was, just killed it right there and ate it. Something it looked like you just grabbed both jaws, bottom and lower, and just went like that.
Wow.
Now you tell me what got that kind of strength.
Bigfoot.
What in the world's gonna grab a deer and just rip the bottom jaw off of it?
So, when I was speaking with Will Jevons, and I think the world of Will Jevons, he has a lot of data that comes into him. One of the things I found fascinating about the way they kill is they will rip the chest cavity and the stomach open.
Yes.
And so that's not far-fetched from ripping the mouth open. I mean, but I thought that was fascinating that, they just go just to dig their hands, their digits into that flesh, and just to have the strength to tear through the hide, the muscle, and just rip it open. That's strength. That's the strength that I couldn't do it. I wouldn't want to do it, but I found that is something that always stayed with me when he told me that. That's something that just
now
always.
There's another odd thing that happened there. I buried a goat of ours that we passed away a few years ago. We had her for like 9 years, and I buried her on the back of the farm. I get a message from one of the game wardens that hunts the neighboring horse farm behind us, and where this happened was probably a half mile from where I buried this thing. He found the goat's head. Just the head. And I know it was the same goat. And
It was a tag. Okay. So obviously you would go back to the grave. Did it look like Cody's digging, or was it abnormal or not consistent with a wild animal digging? Or
here's the weird thing about that. We compost all of our livestock. So whenever we put something in there, I take and I'll go down there with a manure spreader and run a load of manure off on top of it to cover it up. But I'm constantly doing that all the time. So if something dug it up, I wouldn't have really noticed. I would have just backed in there and kept covering it up. So
wow.
I had no clue that it was even missing.
That could be one of the reasons why your livestock's never been attacked. They go after the
They're
dead.
just stealing stuff out of the pile, and I'm not seeing it.
Exactly. When in my area, when someone has an experience, whether it be the canine type creature that I saw or Bigfoot, one of the things I always ask them, is there a pig farm or turkey farm or a chicken farm nearby?
Yeah.
And most of the time, yes. When a lot of people don't discard them properly or fast enough, I should say.
Yeah.
and you don't notice what goes missing. It's an easy meal. And that could be one of the saving graces where, or they may know not to attack the cattle, or or you're going to go in the woods and hell's going to come with you.
Pretty much.
But yeah, that's something you might want to look out for. I don't know if you
I feel
can.
like they're smart enough to know if they start taking live animals, somebody's coming to look for them.
That might be why they have lived on the farm, because we were talking the last interview we did. The last interview we did, we could not do it. There was too much editing out stuff because we got pretty we were just
I think we did
ourselves.
all. I think we're doing all right this time.
Yes, but I forgot where I was going now, Jeff. What were we talking about?
Stuff in the compost pile.
I don't know what I was going to say. Whatever it was a really good point.
Ow.
And I never have any good points to make. Dang. What was we were talking about compost. Were you even listening to me when I was talking?
Yeah. Now. I think it was
we're talking about chicken farms and pig farms.
Yeah, I just think they don't have a reason to steal anything from us. I think that's why they're.
Do you ever notice any of your grain going missing?
No.
Oh, I know. Ding ding. Okay, so I know where I was going with this. We were talking the last time, the last interview, that I just couldn't put it out there. We had too much fun. We were talking about, you go back and your grandfather found the footprints and you've had your experiences. It's almost like as your grandfather and his family were out creating the farm. And I know my house in Robinson County, it was made by the trees that was harvested off the land in 1942, and that's why I bought the house, because it had bones. But you think about, your grandfather was out there, he was clearing the land, he was creating a future for his family and your son's family, and these things were on the land. And as time went by, they watched and learned to live among you. Literally, I believe they have been on your land since your grandfather cleared the land and built a home there, because he found those prints there. That to me, that is pretty darn amazing.
And we're not the biggest tract of land right here. We as far as the woods go, it's not that big, but bordering us is the neighboring property. It's a couple 100 acres, and it runs up onto a ridge, and that ridge runs over to the park. So I think what it is they spend most of their time up on the ridge or the park, and then they come down here. But I don't think they're here all the time.
What do you think the biggest threat to them would be?
Us.
I agree. What do you think is the most abnormal behavior you could contribute to one?
Well, I can tell you what I think one of the funniest things I ever heard was.
No.
Was when I was in Western Maryland and found that trackway while I was camping out there. Well, the first night we're there, Sam and Josh and I had hammocks. Good old fashioned booger taco.
I was fixing to say a booger burrito.
I do not feel good about being inside of one of those things. It's comfortable. It's very nice. But when you hear something outside of it at night, you can't get out of that thing fast enough to figure what's out there.
You've already gift wrapped yourself for whatever's out
Pretty
there.
much.
Just surrender to it.
It was the middle of the night, and we had me facing out across the trail. We were all anchored off the same tree. It was a big tree. Sam's over here and Josh is on this side. So I'm just listening to everybody, snoring whatever is like besides me, Sam's the other snorer. Josh, you'll hear him.
Josh is just the innocent bystander.
Yeah, you'll hear him like whistle or something once in a while, make some sort of odd noise on this side, but he doesn't saw logs like the two of us do.
He purrs.
And we're him and I are both height challenged. Sam's like 6'1", so I'm listening to Sam, and as I had to pee, so I had to try to get out of this thing. And when you're a short person getting in and out of a hammock, it's not real graceful. So you're trying to unzip everything, and I'm trying to get my flashlight and everything together. And I'm listening to Sam. All of a sudden, right across from me, I'm listening and I hear something trying to imitate a snore. And I'm like, the hell is that? And it did it again. And it did it like another time. And I'm like,
Was this before or after you tinkled?
Before.
I wouldn't want to tinkle after that then.
Hey, I got out and marched right over there to the edge of the road after the edge of the trail after that happened. I heard it and I was like not quite paying attention. Then it did it again. I was like, and I clicked my light on, and as soon as it heard me moving around there, it stopped. Wow. And I clicked my headlamp on, stuck my head out, and shined right across the trail, and there was nothing there. I got out and did my business and got back in and somehow managed to go back to sleep within about 5 minutes.
Jeez. Knowing you could have been a Bigfoot burrito.
I think they were curious of us. The next morning, I found an X right across the trail from us.
Was that there before?
Right about where it would have came from.
Was that there before?
I don't remember seeing it because we were picking up brush over there to start fires with that day.
I figure this is what I'm not the brightest crayon in the box, but maybe when you went over there and you relieved yourself, they're like, well, look, he's marking his territory. Let's just mark ours, I mean, X marks the spot, sir.
Well, you know what I did? I peed around that entire camp all week. So just to make sure they knew who was in charge there.
Well, I have heard that. I have heard people when they go out, that is part of their research. They mark their areas. And I don't know if there's a cause and effect there, or
I've heard several guys say that that's the thing to do around your area.
So what do you think is up with West Virginia? West Virginia and Arkansas seem to be the most, let me rephrase that, West Virginia, Arkansas, and Alaska. Because when you start looking at all those missing people in Alaska, that is crazy.
They seem to be why, but as close as Allegheny up there in Western Maryland is to West Virginia, I would have thought what we had up there was aggressive, but it wasn't. I think it was just watching us. I mean, I found that trackway right above the camp on that little ridge line, and it could see us. I mean, it came in and definitely checked us out. And I don't know what it is with West Virginia. Arkansas, I don't know. Everything West Virginia just seems mean. I'm not sure about Arkansas. I don't know. I'm not sure really what I think about Arkansas. Alaska, everything's got to try to survive in that cold weather. I think that's part of the problem.
Everything's edible in Alaska.
Yeah, I think I'd be pissed off if I had to live up there too. Having to go through 12 feet of snow all the time, I think I'd be in a pretty bad mood.
You have to be tough to roll up there, even if you're Sasquatch, don't you?
I don't like the heat, but I don't like that much snow either.
Maybe that's why they're ill. I don't know. But I know you have jury duty tomorrow, so I'm not going to keep you anymore. My question to you, are you going to wear your Bigfoot t-shirt to jury
Maybe.
duty?
I gotta go see if it's in the washing machine.
Well, this is what you do, okay? You go up there and you tell them if they've been charged, they're guilty. And that's the fastest way to get you off of jury duty. And start talking about Bigfoot. And I guarantee you will hit that exit so fast.
I told Mark Green that this morning. I said, I'm just going to start talking about Bigfoot. He's like, well, that might take care of the problem.
I do believe it is. And, you know, Mark Green, he's such a wonderful, wonderful. And
he really is.
And I've gotten to sit on a few shows with Woodwalker. Great. Yeah. And I tell you, Misty has some great experiences. I would love to pick her brain. And
Greg could write a book about all the crap that's happened at his house. He's told it so many times that he doesn't really talk.
I have purposely not listened to his encounters because if there's ever a chance that he wants to come on the show, I want to hear him firsthand.
Yeah.
He may not, you know, that's his choice. Life goes on. But I've purposely kind of wanted to.
So you could get the firsthand.
I like the rawness of hearing the encounters from the person. And I've heard nothing but good things about them. But let's go into your podcast and where people can find you.
Yeah. So Jerry Richardson and I have Old Line Cryptids. And we're on what, 11?
YouTube.
We're on YouTube. Episode 11 just came out last night. We've got
David.
Got ourselves a new co-host. Talked David Blaylock into backing us up, and David, I met him a couple months ago through Woodwalkers. Great guy. You know that.
He is a great guy. Yeah.
He's going antelope hunting this week.
Yeah. His wife, she ain't no joke either. Now she hangs out with him.
No.
Good people. They really are good people.
Did you catch what we were talking about with him setting that recorder last night?
Can't remember because I was having conversations with my husband too.
they went to one of the places where they camp out there on that mountain. And he set a recorder inside of some boulders, like in a berry patch or something, and left it there at about 10:30 at night. Went back to the camp, and they could see the area where. I mean, if somebody came in there with a light or something, they'd be able to tell if someone was messing around. Well, apparently, when they went back to pull it the next morning. 15 minutes after he had set it and went back to the camp, something walked up to it, reached into the pile of rocks where he had put the recorder and turned it off. Yeah.
That's intelligence.
Yeah.
I don't think that was Burr Rabbit.
I've heard stories about him messing with lights. Mark Green and I were talking about that this morning. He's seen them where they've turned lights off.
Wow. I've heard tell of them ripping trail cams off trees.
Well, I found one of those too.
Do tell.
I found a trail camera one time like that. We thought one of the bears had pulled it off the tree, but it was unstrapped and it was just laying there.
Wow.
I'm thinking, what is unstrapping cameras? And well, we could see we could get. It looked, the one picture he had, it looked like a bear's hair, like the side of its head or something. So I don't know if it was maybe this thing's hand while it was grabbing the camera or what it was, but something pulled that camera off.
Wow.
And the weird thing is, we hunt all of these spots still, and usually the only place that feels weird is the back section that we lease, not even the place that I hunt where I had the encounter.
It kind of seems to me like, based on what you're telling me, you respect that feeling and you just leave them alone there. Because when you know.
After I got ran out of there for a couple nights, I sat down there near that Woodline in the truck with a rifle and a lot better light. And I just got so pissed off. I was like, what in the hell am I doing? I'm letting this, whatever this is, keep me out of the woods. And
you figured out you weren't the alpha.
Yeah.
In the world. That's what happened with me. I realized really fast I wasn't the alpha. And on top
of I'm like, why am I letting this thing keep me out of the woods? And I just kept getting madder and madder about it. And finally I was like, I'm going back. And nothing's ran me out of the woods since then. Well,
are you intrusive to that area, or do you respect the feeling and stay out of it?
If I feel like there's a reason not to go there, I won't go there.
I respect that.
Something tells me not to go somewhere, I don't go there.
Well, I absolutely respect that, and that's probably why you live to be 30-something years old.
There are a lot of people that still don't believe that they're here. I got guys that hunt with me have never had anything happen to them. And if they did, they probably wouldn't come back.
What would you say to a non-believer?
Don't run into one. Then you're going to end up like the rest of us.
Well, the one thing about coming into the community where Bigfoot is a part of it, you meet some of the best people. You meet some of the craziest people too. But
I would say you need to pay attention. Even if you don't believe in this, don't just go out lollygagging through the woods and think that there isn't anything that could hurt you, because there's a lot more stuff bumping around than people want to talk about. I mean, I've got dogman reports not far from here, and I've been to several of those locations, and they're very popular areas where people go all the time and fish. And it's just, everyone's like, oh, you can't, there's no way something will be there.
Hang on, our emergency alert's going off. Storm's coming. Yeah, flood warning.
Uh-oh.
It is among us. Well, at the end of, look who said hello.
Hey, Swamp Kitty.
Look, he's talking to you. Say hey.
Hey.
Oh, he's not in a good mood. Okay, so at the end of every, where are you puffed up at? What do you see? Oh, she's all puffed up, buddy.
Oh, I don't know if I finished plugging the channel. Did we tell everybody how to find us?
No, go ahead. Plug it again.
So, Old Line Cryptids, we're on YouTube on Tuesdays. You can find us on Facebook at Old Line Cryptids. And you can look Jerry and I up on Facebook. I'm Jeff Yarrington, and Jerry goes by Jerry Richardson. And Jerry also does a tractor pull channel. That's his business.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So at the end of every video, my hands are full, so I can't give you the full screen. I always ask, is there someone you would love to pay tribute to?
Well, this is going to be a tough one here.
Or you could pay tribute to multiple people.
I gotta pay tribute to my grandfather.
Hold on, he deserves full screen. Hang on. I will.
Oh. We just lost my grandfather, Bud Amos, back in January on the 7th, and if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't still be farming, and I wouldn't probably be here doing this, because after he died, I promised to myself that I wasn't going to hide about this anymore. And he's got a lot to do with a lot of this, and I just wanted to tell him that I miss him. And I know he's still here watching out for us. I know he still hides tools from me. But that was always a running joke with him. But I just wanted to say thanks to him, and thanks to everybody that's I've met in the last few months, and I really don't know what else to say other than thank you to all of you, and you've all been really great friends. You too, Miss D. I can't hear you.
Well, so much for being sentimental. I said, I appreciate that, and I think your grandfather would be proud of you. I really do. I'm going to let you go. Take a selfie of you in that Bigfoot shirt before you go into court tomorrow.
I might have to put my new stickers on the truck for when I park in the parking lot tomorrow.
Absolutely. I heard you get to park free if you have Bigfoot stickers.
Well, we get to park free anyway, but I think the Bigfoot sticker might help me get out of the parking lot. What the hell is this fool doing with Bigfoot stickers? He can't be in here. He believes in a monster that doesn't exist.
They exist.
Unfortunately.
It was a pleasure talking to you. I hope you get out of jury duty. Just go in, pop an Alka-Seltzer in your mouth. They should escort you out pretty quickly.
Hey, I will tell you one thing. The people that always doubt you, they've got no problem saying they don't believe it. But when you ask them to go out in the woods with them, they won't go with you.
That is true. That is very true.
There's nothing out there. Well, why don't you come with me?
Standing invitation.
Exactly. You know how many of them I said, yeah, you can come out here. But I don't know if I want to do that. You said there's nothing out there to be scared of. What are you scared of?
The big hairy man.
Exactly.
The big hairy man. So I would say if I didn't believe in Bigfoot and someone invited me out, I would probably go out just to laugh at the people out there. But I will say I will say this to you. The gentleman I was speaking with earlier told me that when people used to tell him they've had an experience or Bigfoot was real, and he would look at them and he'd say, "No, it's a bear." And July 2024, he became a believer from 20 yards away. So I will be working on his story. I hope I don't slaughter it. And that should be coming out in a couple of days. So Jeff,
when are you putting this out next week?
Dude, I don't know. We're still going live. You know, this is how we had to. This is how we lost our whole interview the other day. We forgot we were live and was just, or we forgot we were recording and just went way off subject about corn and whatever.
I think we did a lot better on this one. So
yeah. Well, I've enjoyed it. I respect what you do. I respect the love you have for country and family, and I respect more than anything how you treat your friends. And
if you ever want to do an interview on just farming, we can do that too.
Well, you know, I'm going to do probably a wild card Wednesday where I might have a UFO abductee or a super soldier on or a remote viewer on, and
where a farmer chases Bigfoot,
takes a John Deere tractor and goes airborne with it. That, to me, that just, you're a hero, man. That is what American legends are made of.
Oh, I felt pretty legendary that night. If everybody could laugh about this kind of stuff like we do, I think more people would talk about it. But
that's why I think the show's name turns a lot of people off, but I did it for a reason. I think it's a serious subject. Yes, I've had some very serious, interviews on, my YouTube, but the thing is, none of us are perfect, and we all, trying to figure it out, and
yeah,
it is what it is. And if you can take a lighthearted approach and make someone comfortable where they want to bring their story out, and so be it.
Well, that's why Jerry and I do things the way we do them, because there's no room in this for all this high and mighty. You just need to be able to talk to people and not pick on them, and just give them space to breathe and let them laugh. Good Lord, you don't need to be so serious about everything.
If you went back and you listened to my interview on Tinfoil Tales, Brendan writes, and you heard my story, and I still do have an anger issue. Doesn't mean I'm violent. But because of my background and the way my mind thinks and how I'm designed as a person, to have a lighthearted approach at a subject to me this serious has been really hard for me to do, because it is not in my character. I am a very tactical, hard charger. I'm a bull. So this has forced me to lighten up as a person. And I've talked to you at times when you've called to work and just say, "Hey, we're having a show tonight. Don't forget to, jump in," and been in one of my moods, and you just like, "Oh my God, what's wrong?" But it's forced me to probably be a better. I'm not going to say a better person, because I really have a big heart and I love people, but I'm a hard charger, and the approach to the show is very difficult for me. But so, and I'm very antisociable. I'm just, you could put me on a mountain and leave me there by myself, and I'll take my cat.
I have no problem doing that either.
with everything going on, I imagine so. But that's one of the reasons I named it the Not So Perfect Bigfoot Show. None of us are perfect, and I'm not, you're not. You either like the show or you don't. And I've had people, turn me down on the show because of the title or just snub me. And you know what? And I'm like, who are you? Really? Who are you? You're not you're not a Bigfoot god. I know you like to see yourself on the camera, sir, but you're not. Yeah. So if whatever, and that's just the way I feel, and I don't care if people get pissed off at me in the comments because I just don't give a shit. It was an approach I decided to take. I wanted it to be an open and a lighthearted place. We do get into some pretty serious things. I do take some very serious. And honestly, when you think of it, I am one of those people that I think they will snatch your neck off or your head off your body. And that is my stance on them. I think you get lucky until you're not. So don't let the show's name fool you.
Don't think that everything's cute and cuddly and wants to hug you.
Well, you can live among them for years, and it only takes one time.
So. Just because I look cute and innocent doesn't mean I'm not ready for something.
You don't look cute and innocent, sir. Anyway, you've got to go to bed. You've got jury duty tomorrow. So you go and be a good boy and go to bed. Good night, Jeff.
Good night.
Later, Tater.